So in this video, we're going to do a quick distance test of the Pilot Varsity fountain pen. It's a really popular disposable fountain pen, although you can refill it. I have a video on that. I highly recommend it. It's very reliable and fun to use, but it's really hard to say how long this is going to last. And it seems like it has a really great capacity, but when I say that, it's purely anecdotal. So I have the standard one you would buy in a store. That's medium nib black ink, brand new Pilot Varsity, never used before. I'm gonna put it on the drawing robot here and we'll see the distance it could get. Let's get started. So here's the drawing robot doing a single pass 232 meter test pattern. Takes about 35 minutes. Okay, so the first page is done. That means the Pilot Varsity has done about 232.5 meters of writing in this grid. What do we see? We see not that much ink collection over here at the ends. That's really nice. That means there's not a lot of ink collecting on that nib. With a gel pen with a slightly thicker ink, as it goes this way, it stops, it turns this way. A lot of the ink that collects on this path this way will get dropped off over here. We don't see a ton of that. So that's a really good sign. We do see some areas here and then over here where it's generally lighter than the rest, and it's across rows, which means it would have persisted for maybe a minute, 2 minutes. That just means that there is probably some sort of oil or something on the page where it would have not written as well over here. This pen is more sensitive, as a fountain pen, is more sensitive to that sort of stuff than a typical ballpoint or gel pen. That's where I see these in sort of patches that have nothing to do with the way the pen is traveling, right? They would be this way or this way. Instead, they're kind of blotchy. Again, that's just something that got on the page, and this type of ink is more sensitive to it. A few light areas over here that probably just has to do with some imperfect ink flow. Overall, really nice fidelity, and the pen was very consistent from start to finish. Here's a look at that fidelity up close. You could see it actually did really well. We see a couple imperfections, some little skips here and there, but overall it did quite nicely. Okay, so the Varsity is starting the second page. That'll be another 232 meters in the writing test. Okay, so this Varsity is completely out of ink. You can see the window is empty here and it is not writing. So what we're gonna do just to do a little bit more testing is we'll do a refill. I know the pen is sold as being disposable, but with a little bit of finesse, you can actually refill these. We'll refill it with some Lamy blue ink and we'll test it again with a known ink capacity. Okay, so we have the nib here, the feed, the pen body, we have our Lamy blue ink, and then we have just a little pipette type thing to fill it. And these are nice because they're very cheap and we could fill it to a known capacity. They go from 1 to 2 to 3 milliliters. Okay, so we're exactly at 2.5 milliliters now. And this is looking pretty full. So we're gonna have to go a little bit under, and that should be just right. We don't wanna put too much ink in there and have it overflow. Back in securely. It's probably a little bit more ink than we wanted, but I'm thinking it's gonna be good. Okay, so we're in business now with 2.25 or so milliliters, and we'll do another writing test now with this Varsity, and we'll see how much distance we get out of it. Okay, so at this point, the distance testing of the Pilot Varsity is finished. Here are the 4 emptied Varsities. It came from 2 different packages. So we have a 3-pack, that's this one, of a black, purple, and the blue. All of these are medium nib, a standalone black, and then the blue not only ran with the original Pilot ink, but I also ran it with a refill of a Lamy blue ink. So here are the empty pens. Those can be cleaned out and refilled whenever I'm ready to use them again. Not too much interesting to see in the packaging. It doesn't have a measurement or anything like that here. So overall, I would say the quality of the Varsity's writing in the tests is really quite good. I was really happy with it. I wasn't really sure how a fountain pen would fare relative to a ballpoint or a gel pen. And I've done a fair bit of testing with fountain pens, but not as much as other ones. And again, I was really happy with the results. We see really good line quality separation from line to line, so no problems there. Very little skipping. And here's that first page, almost no problems. Some lighter areas, but again, some of that has to do with the material I'm writing on, like the underlying material. Some of it has to do with the drawing robot just having some inconsistent pressure. It's hard to isolate it to the pen itself. Moving on to page 2, very consistent. No real problems from page 1 to page 2. Maybe a skip, another skip here, one flaw here where the nib might have gotten a little dry, but no real problems. Page 3, again, quite good. No problems here. And then it was good down to the kind of last drop. And then we saw some streaking here as that nib was sort of starting and stopping. And then it ran out halfway through the final page. Okay, so now we're looking at page 1 of the Pilot Varsity refilled with the Lamy ink. So in case you're wondering about, doing a different ink and if using a different ink was going to affect the writing quality of the Varsity, I could tell you right now, and we could see there is no drop in the writing quality. In fact, if anything, it looks like it might have been improved. And we're seeing really nice separation of lines, even with a medium nib. Very little in the way of inconsistencies. Maybe a dropped section here or there, but overall really great quality throughout all of the first page. Moving over to the second page, again, really spot on quality. And at this point, the pen itself would have written through 2 full writing tests, so it was getting well over 1,000 meters, and it's still really, really high quality. And that actually persisted through pages 3 and then page 4. Again, really great quality and no major problems at all. In fact, with the Lamy ink, that Pilot Varsity has the best consistency of pretty much any pen we've seen so far. That's including the hybrids and the ballpoints. The fountain pens really do a great job at these lines. You see no collection or pooling over here, almost nothing in the way of skipping right here. Maybe some heaviness over here. Past that, really no problems. And again, almost no skipping. At this point, the pen was getting pretty low on ink too. This is page 4. Last time I did 6 pages, but since I filled the Varsity manually, I was able to get a higher capacity. Here's the final full page. So it's actually page 7. Now we can see, again, very good quality, no pooling, and good consistency throughout. And then at the start of page 8, it ran out of ink. Okay, so now in the final portion of the video, we can review the test results. I had run the Varsity in 5 tests, but in one of them, the paper ripped. So I'm going to throw out those results because I had to end the test prematurely. It was on track to be in keeping with these 3, but again, we won't include those numbers. So here we see the blue, purple, and black Varsities, and really nice grouping right there. 1275, 1138, 1276. Just a coincidence those 2 are so close, but right around there, right around that 1200 meter mark, that is where these Pilot Varsities at stock are running out of ink. And the tests are really good consistency in the lines, so I feel good about those numbers. I'm not even concerned that that final black test didn't come through. Here in the last one, we have the Varsity where I overfilled it with the Lamy ink. So I was able to put in more ink than Pilot does from factory. I was able to really cram it full of ink, and more than probably was a good idea, but it never leaked, so it did work out. And in my testing, I got 1659. So Basically, by filling it yourself and going a little bit heavy on the fill, you can get another 25% of life out of the same pen body. And again, mine had no problems and no leaking and really good consistency. So there's no real downside to putting that extra ink in there. So if you do have one of these, do not consider it to be a disposable pen. You can refill it and actually get better longevity out of it than you would from the factory. Plus, you can customize your ink. I really like the Lamy Blue. I actually prefer it over the Pilot Blue, and I really did think it wrote quite nicely in that Lamy Blue, even though it's not the factory ink. So yeah, that is how far a Pilot Varsity fountain pen in medium can write. I would say you could expect to get about 1,200 meters of writing out of it. You know, relative to a gel pen, you are looking at, say, about 1,200 meters, maybe a little bit less out of a 1.0 millimeter, maybe around 2,000 meters out of a 0.5, and, 1,500 out of a 0.7, maybe 1,250 out of a 0.7, right around there. So one of these is writing, I would say, the equivalent of a 1.0 millimeter gel pen, but it's not going to get close to a 0.7 or definitely not a 0.5 millimeter gel pen. So you don't really have to think of these fountain pens as being super short-lived. They can get the equivalent life of a reasonably sized gel pen. That's it. If you like this longevity testing, please leave a comment. Let me know. It takes a tremendous amount of time and effort to do this. I've been finding it to be really interesting and rewarding, and I would love to get your guys' feedback. Thanks for watching.